Hey guys, Jeremy here from Menza Gaming, back with a new episode of Breaking the Meta. And it almost feels like a new format again because it's been so long since I've actually done a solo video. In fact, any kind of a video with Menza. Why has it been so long doing an episode of Breaking the Meta? So I'll give a quick explanation before I move on to the episode in earnest. It's been a really busy season. The 2016 into the start of 2017 season of competitive 40k was hectic, to say the least. I think it was a phenomenal explosion of enthusiasm in the Australian scene. We saw pockets of competitive players popping up all around Australia, converging on Canberra for the Cancon Championship. But just so much, there was just so much passion being displayed around within small communities, and I was really proud to see that start to occur within the Australian wargaming scene. We know that Frontline Gaming have done such a great, inspiring effort to create that kind of T-sports phenomenon that we were seeing kind of people flock. I was one of the people that flocked to watch the LVO on Twitch TV, and I thought it was a fantastic format. Discussed it with Sean on a recent episode of State of the Meta about how much 40k is kind of becoming, or at least kind of transitioning, or at least I guess how would you put it? It's giving itself a chance of being a viewer sport. It's not necessarily there yet, but it's putting itself out there, and there are definitely a team of people or multiple teams of people around the world trying to facilitate that. So why have I been so busy? I was really busy, I guess, attending a lot of events. I think I attended something like 20 events or 25 events last year. I think about 15 of them were ITC ranked, which is quite a high amount, or maybe 12 or 13. But, a lot of events. When you work it out, I think I was in an event, every few weeks on average, which made it really difficult towards the end of the year to be, pushing out a lot of this kind of content. But more importantly, regarding my personal contributions and stuff like that, I haven't had internet for a while. I recently moved house, as you can probably see, and it looks like I might be in a new location. And being in a new environment, I guess, I was really busy with work and stuff like that. And I took way too long to get wide internet connected. So despite how silly that might sound, I was actually internet-less for a couple of months. But I think it's another testament to technology these days, where having a smartphone makes it, you kind of always have the internet. So I didn't really feel the need to have wide internet, but it did make it quite hard for me to play games like Hearthstone and obviously do content like uploads and stuff like that. But here we are now. We're in a new ITC season. A couple of events have run and people are starting to accumulate points already. But you can see my trophy at the back there for a top ITC player in Australia, 2016. And, I'm really proud of that achievement. I think it's something I really tried for. There were multiple people gunning for it. The other two competitors that were really on hot on my heels the whole season were Aurora Nicholson from Canberra and Adam Napier from South Australia. But there were a massive kind of swathe of players that were kind of just a little bit behind, but if they performed really well at Cancon, had the capacity of overtaking all of us, the other two players as well. So there was definitely a big, vibrant, robust level of competition. So therefore, it makes me feel proud about my achievement. I think if you achieve something and it's not difficult, then it makes you, it's nothing to be proud of. It's like if you go to a playground and, there's a bunch of kids playing chess, and you go beat them at chess, you're not going to feel great about yourself because you haven't, really competed. And fortunately for, I think, the ITC season in Australia, I think there was that legitimate sense of competition, which is great for all of us. I think if you're an Australian player and you're playing, or even an international player, if you're playing, the fact that 40k is becoming so competitive internationally and in Australia means that you can feel like it's worth investing into, because you're going to invest into a really strong group of players around in various communities, which means that when you do achieve something, even if it is winning a local Rogue Trader a tournament of 15, 20 people, you can still feel like that's an achievement because you haven't just, beat up a bunch of baby seals to steal the term from Adam Napier. But yeah, so that's that. And here we are. We're gonna start the season. This season, I am gonna be trying to defend my title, but I definitely won't be able to attend the depth or breadth of events that I attended this year. I will be trying to hit the majors, and I think that's the best chance you have of racking up points. But yeah, there we have it. I'll be doing a lot more analysis, a lot more breaking the meta videos. I'll be looking at a lot of archetypes, which leads me as a good kind of segue into this video. This video will be a analysis of my Cancon list. People have sent me a few requests. I've had multiple people message me asking me questions about the barkbark star, about what's the concept, why is it such a strong list, all these kind of questions and things like that. So I thought, why not start my analysis, archetype analysis on the barkbark star itself, given that I did perform quite well with it at Cancon. It ended up on 8 out of 8 wins, and a lot of those wins were very dominant wins. So I'll start first by describing what the barkbark star is, and then I'm going to explain how I built my barkbark star in part 1. So part 1 of this video is going to be what is the barkbark star and how did I build my list for Cancon. And part 2 is going to be an analysis of the performance of the list, and also how I would change the list for future events I would go to. And I think that's an also very important and relevant part of list building. It's not just building a good list, but even if you win all your games, or even if you feel like it's really strong, there's always merit in trying to interrogate those little 1%ers in your list and to try to maximize the efficiency, because those 1%ers can literally make differences in games. We've all played games where that one melter bomb could have made a difference in a combat. That one Auspex could have made a difference. That one searchlight. I've played games where I've literally looked at my army. I might be playing Eldar or playing, even let's say an Imperium army that doesn't have searchlights, because searchlights don't come on vehicles like Chimeras. You look at your Chimeras, and then you look at your opponent's Ravenwing Death Star, that just went from having a 3-up jink rerollable to a 2-up jink because of Night Fight, and you just think to yourself, wow, that one searchlight would have changed this whole game. Those kind of things, those kind of feelings prove and demonstrate that you need to always retrospectively analyze your lists. Try to squeeze in as much efficiency as you can. So let's start the video. What is the barkbark star? The barkbark star is any star predicated upon this wolfkin formation that I've got up on the screen. Obviously, you can't read that. I don't expect you to be able to read that. I can't read that. That's just kind of shows you what the data slate looks like. But maybe you can read the text down here, and I will read it out for you anyway. So basically what the barkbark star is it's based on this wolfkin formation that came out in Curse of the Wolfen. So it's been out for a while, actually. And the wolfkin formation is 2 to 5 units of Fenrisian wolves, right? So Fenrisian wolves are a unit that doesn't see much play outside of this barkbark star. But what makes this unit formation so important is that the 2 to 5 units of Fenrisian wolves at the start of the game can join to form one big unit, and you can actually decide however many units can form the one unit as you want. So you could have 5 units of Fenrisian wolves, and you could just choose to have 4 of them form a single unit, and have one outlying unit as well. So that offers a lot of versatility in terms of your ability to have potential MSU alongside a star. But I feel like in almost every game you play, you will join them all together. So you can have up to 75 wolves in a unit, given that Fenrisian wolves can have that those 15-man squads. In addition to obviously that alone is huge, right? That alone makes this formation competitive. In addition to that, they gain special rules Monster Hunter and Outflank. Outflank, not very relevant because I don't think you want to be putting this Death Star in reserves very often, if at all. But Monster Hunter is very, very, very good because obviously that rule confers. So any ICs you put into the unit will also have Monster Hunter, which is a fantastic special rule for the formation to have. Furthermore, they also get a special rule called Alpha Pack, And that rule is that if you have 20 or more wolves in the unit, they gain +1 attack as long as there are the 20 wolves left in the unit. So as soon as the formation drops under 20, they lose the +1 attack. But when you think about the fact that you can start the game with up to 75 wolves, it's very difficult to envisage you getting under 20, So the point is your wolves gain +1 attack. So that's also phenomenal. It means the Fenrisian wolves go up from 2 attacks to 3. And then they also have counter attack, which means that even if they're assaulted, your wolves will still have 4 attacks each. And when you assault, assuming it's not a disorderly charge, you'll also have 4 attacks. So the wolves can definitely catch people off guard. So many people over the event would assault me. And when I picked up my dice to attack at initiative step 4, they almost always would ask, what's going on here? Why do you have so many attacks? And I had to explain. They already knew about the +1 attack, but I had to explain the counter attack and just the fact that it's very, people don't expect that many attacks to come from just Fenrisian wolves, which are 8 points per model. I'll see if I can find the Fenrisian wolf data slate here. This is the kind of little notes I took to Cancon with me. So Fenrisian wolves, weapon skill 4, strength toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 4, 2 attacks, leadership 5, and a 6-up save. So pretty lackluster stats, but they do have that marine kind of equivalent in terms of their strength, toughness, initiative, etc. They've also got, as I said, counter attack as well as acute senses. They can upgrade to cyber wolves for 10 points, so it is possible in this barkbark star to squeeze in some characters because the cyber wolves actually have a character profile. And the unit is beasts, which does give them fleet. Obviously, once you add in ICs, they'll lose the fleet, but they will automatically pass DT tests, which is very relevant because it means that you're not going to be losing wolves, which adds up. It does add up over the course of a game when you have such a big Death Star that is obviously invariably going to be moving through terrain. It's never nice to lose a couple of models per turn of just that kind of sense of attrition. So it is nice that they're beasts. So that's the barkbark star. Okay, if you've got a wolfkin formation with 40, 50 plus wolves, doesn't really matter what's in it. It's a barkbark star. You look at something like Brandon Grant's list that he took to LVO, came second in that event, and he had a Dark Angel Lion's Blade, so it's a battle company. He actually had a wolfkin formation in that list where he had Azrael, he had a priest, and he had a couple of the ICs, his Dark Angels ICs that were necessary for the Lion's Blade. And he kind of made this like super budget barkbark star with what he had. But I would still consider that, despite the fact that it's so budget, I would still consider that the kind of minimal form of the bark star. So the bark star is effectively the wolfkin formation with ICs added in. So on that note, having defined what the barkbark star is, I will mention why I decided to take it to Cancon before I look at the list itself. Because when I was envisaging why I wanted to take this list, or why it wasn't so much, the question was not just why did I want to take barkbark, but why didn't I want to take Riptide Wing, Eldar MSU, Genestealer Cult? I had access to a lot of different styles of lists, but why did I choose barkbark? So it's not just, barkbark being good, it's about why weren't the other lists necessarily the best? And for me, it was this excruciating process. And I don't know, I have a weird kind of, what would you call it? Like, I'm an obsessive person. I tend to obsess about things. So when I'm faced with a challenge like Cancon, I spent months, literally up at night thinking about the matchups of every different list. Riptide Wing is good against this, bad against this, Eldar. And, these kind of, loops. I was on these loops, and the loops would always hit, a dead end. Like, the Riptide Wing loop, it's Riptide Wing's good against, it's decent against some Death Stars. It's decent against a lot of vehicle style units, but then I'd be like, oh no, it's really bad against. It's bad against Wraith Knight, like the incantation I wanted to take, which was without the Storm Surge. Oh no, it's bad against a Wraith Knight, so I need a Storm Surge. And then I'm like, okay, I have to put a Storm Surge in. So now I've got a Storm Surge and Riptide Wing. Oh no, but what happens if I play against Cabal? What happens if I play against a Cabal that has first turn and they can, it's just these loops occurred. Even Riptide Wing, I was put off slightly by just the fact that if any Death Star got first turn, it buffed up. you're in trouble. And also the fact that I didn't really like the fact that they're vulnerable to warp spiders and to Eldar with a Wraith Knight. So that kind of Riptide Wing kind of archetype I dismissed. And I'm not going to go through every single archetype, but these kind of things occurred with various lists. And then I got to the Barkbark Star. And what I realized about the Barkbark Star is I looked at the Cancon mission pack, and it's something that I would encourage you to all do when you write a list. Is don't just write a list. Don't just say, oh, my mate told me there's an 1850 event on next weekend. I'm just going to take this list. Go and have a look at the mission pack. Go and have a look at what you're actually going to be playing, because that hugely defines what the strengths of a list are. And having looked at and played in the ITC modified missions that Scott Duvall and John Krause kind of presented for Cancon, I realized that there were missions there that really, really favored Death Stars. Kill points mission, right? We knew that there were 5 missions, and 6 missions, and we knew there were going to be 2 duplicates. I was fairly certain that kill points were going to be one of the duplicated missions, just because in an 8-game tournament, it seems silly to only play kill points once. And you know, it just seems like a style, an archetype of mission that would warrant being played twice. So I kind of was fairly certain kill points was going to be played twice. There was going to be at least 1 relic mission. So this list, when you've got a Wolfkin Star, the unit does not give up kill points until every model dies. That's how it's played in ITC. So in order for your list to give up, the Fenrisian Wolves to give up any kill points, they need to kill 65 wolves. I've had 64 in my list. So they need to kill every single 64 wolves before they get the full 5 kill points for the 5 units. So that alone made me feel that the kill points was great. That was a great list for kill points, because you've just got this one big Death Star, a couple of small units you can hide, and you just won't give up kill points. And then in the Relic, I made sure to get clarification in advance from the TO about how they play the Relic in this specific group of players, in Canberra. I'm not sure how it's played over in the USA and how Frontline Gaming play it, but I know that the way that it was played at Cancon, and I knew this in advance, was that when you pick up the Relic with a unit, that unit supersedes, that unit has the Relic, and even if another unit from your opponent comes within 3 of the model holding the Relic, they're not contesting it. So the TO did specify that whichever unit has the Relic just straight up owns the Relic until it has to drop it. So to me, that was a huge mission for Death Stars. If a Death Star can move up and grab the Relic, you pretty much automatically win. All you need to do is protect your Death Star. You don't even need to engage your opponent's army. You just need to make sure that the Relic Bearer just moves back into the middle of the unit, and you just kind of insulate it, and you just win that mission. So for me, I looked at Barkbark Star, and I felt that I automatically just won 2 kill point missions and the Relic, unless I have a mirror match or a really, really bad game or whatever. So that alone was compelling. And then I went through the various matchups, and I felt that the Barkbark Star beat other Death Stars. It just had the ability to just overwhelm Cabal Stars. It could beat smaller Death Stars, given that it's got hit and run and stuff like that. I built the list with the purpose and made a lot of considerations expressly to be able to beat Riptide Wing. I feel like it's quite strong against Eldar, because it kind of takes up the middle of the board, and Warp Spiders and Bikes can't really get around it like they normally would want to. So you can just kind of corner in and hem in Eldar. I just really felt that the list had very few deficits. It's also good against Genestealer Cult, which was something I was aware of. And other very fringe archetypes like demons and stuff like that, I feel it's also quite good against. The list's biggest vulnerability is being movement blocked, which is what happened to me in a game I played at Oz Masters against Josh Diffie. And I learned from that game. I was very, very new and fresh to playing Death Stars at Oz Masters. It was kind of my, what would you call it? Like baptism of fire of playing Death Stars. But I kind of learned that, okay, the list is vulnerable to being movement blocked and to be isolated and stuff like that. You have coherency blocked and things like that. But I felt that I could manage that and prevent people from doing that to me in the event. So overall, I just thought that there were almost no bad matchups. The worst matchup for this list for me was a mirror match type of situation, or a worst case scenario type of situation, like when you don't get all your spells and you play Riptide Wing and that you don't have any defensive spells, so they just blow you up, stuff like that. And you almost never can prevent that in any game you play anyway. So all in all, I eventually settled upon this list because I felt it had the best matchups, and I also felt it had some auto win missions. So that was my justification overall, and I kind of felt that it was possible to drop a game in certain situations. There was I could envisage scenarios where I could get locked up with AV13. And by the way, I should mention that one of the matchups I did not want to play was Battle Company. That was a matchup that I thought was a weaker matchup for this army, because I feel like the barkbark star struggles to obviously table a Battle Company. Battle Company will always be able to keep pushing models onto objectives, but I did feel that I could at least just force a draw. Like if you're playing an objective mission, like kill points or relic, you auto win. But if you are playing one of those kind of crusade style missions, you can just kind of insulate your objectives. You're not going to potentially push them off theirs. Worst case scenario, you force it to go to Maelstrom. And I think that's another thing that needs to be mentioned, is the barkbark star is really, really good in Maelstrom for ITC. The reason is, when your opponent rolls dice to kill a unit, they're not going to kill a unit. You're making it very difficult for them to kill units. You're making it very difficult for them to generate Maelstrom cards. The only cards they can really safely get are the hold their own objectives, which is why in my list I included some long range shooting, which I'll discuss soon. So my strategy was, I had my battle plan of having like a very powerful list to play the missions, to play to the matchups. And I had a backup plan of, in those like mirror matches and those matches that's like a 50-50, like Battle Company, I teched in options to be able to beat them on Maelstrom. So even though the Eternal War, the primary, there might be like a draw, I felt that I could push myself over to a win in the secondaries, which was Maelstrom. And things like First Strike. I wanted to make it really difficult for my opponents to get First Strike against this list. So I put a ton of thought into it. Came out on the other end of the barkbark star being the optimal way to play. So how did I build my barkbark star? Okay, so let's have a look. This is the list. I'll just read it out because it's possible that if you're watching this on YouTube, the video might be too small to actually see the text. So here we've got my HQ choice for Cancon. For the army was Samael. 200 points. Samael is there primarily because of the fact that he has hit and run. His bonuses like Scout, his rerollable Jinx Save and things like that are nice, but primarily he's there as a hit and run enabler. And also obviously he's a HQ choice. I have to have a HQ choice. If I didn't take Samael, I would have taken a Librarian with the preferred enemy relic. But I just think that this list needs hit and run, and it definitely came up in the event. So I think if you're going to build any Death Star, you want hit and run, and especially if you can shoehorn it in easily. If ITC has a 3 detachment restriction, which is incredibly restrictive at times, but in an army you can just take Samael, or now you've got Celestine as an option, and Chaos have got Cypher. Eldar have got options as well, like they can take what's his name? Can't think of his name. The Sweeping Hawks dude. But yeah, you've got options. So if you can shoehorn in a hit and run character into a Death Star, do it. So Samael was my HQ. Then I have 2 units of scouts with snipers. I've had kind of positive experiences with sniper scouts in the past, but we'll talk about my experience with them later. But the ultimate point is I would in the future drop the snipers, because as it turned out in the games, the scouts were almost always hiding and just holding objectives. Then in my heavy support slots for that detachment, I had 5 quad mortar batteries from the Forge World experimental rules. I had a unit of 3 and a unit of 2. These things are like kind of weaker versions of Thunderfire cannons. I've got the rules are available for free online, but I've got their rules here anyway. Where are they? they're there. So these rules are very small, very difficult to read. So I encourage you to go have a look online if you're interested now. But effectively, they can shoot 2 modes of fire. They're like Thunderfire cannons. They're artillery, toughness 7, 3-up saves. They have Space Marine crew, 2 crew each. And they can shoot barrage mode, where they shoot strength 5, AP 5, 4 shots each. Or they can shoot a mode of direct fire, where they shoot 4 shots each. And it's strength 8, AP 4, with a rule that gives it reroll fail armor pen. So effectively tank hunter, that also works against like buildings and stuff like that. So I think they're phenomenal for 60 points per model. I think that they're ridiculously good. I knew they were ridiculously good. I was sitting on these, Sean and I was sitting on these kind of like barrage thud guns for the whole preparation to Cancon. We weren't really talking about it much. We weren't really telling people, because it's not so much that it's not that I didn't want other people to take them. It's more that I didn't want people to know I was taking them as well. So there was this like double-edged sword, where you don't want people to kind of counter what they think you've got, and you also don't want other people to just have this resource they're going to take as well. So I had a unit of 3, unit of 2. So as you can see, they were phenomenal, absolutely spectacular. And the whole Renegades, strength of Renegades is pretty much built upon thud guns and other barrage elements like Withens. So, the direct fire mode was just icing on the cake sometimes. Most of the time I was using the barrage mode, but being able to shoot strength 8 with rerolls to pen just gives you your army an option for one of its biggest weaknesses, which is AV-13 walkers that can lock up your Death Star. And if they hit you from an angle where you don't have any characters, you can effectively just get perma locked in if they can also block your hit and run. So these weapons give me an opportunity to shoot out those AV-13 walkers. Then in the last choice, I had the Lord of War. I had Azrael. 215 points for Azzy Warlord. Once again, a phenomenal choice, because he gives the whole unit a 4-up invulnerable save. And he also picks his Warlord trait. And what I find interesting is that a lot of people will pick Azrael as a Warlord and kind of already in their own mind feel, okay, I'm taking him for this Warlord trait, I'm taking him for the FNP, or I'm taking him for the extra charge range. I think I used 3 different Warlord traits, and I don't think I used one more than 3 times over 8 games. So I found myself using every Warlord trait when it was relevant to a game. So FNP is the kind of go-to Warlord trait, because it just, as long as a model in your unit is within 3 of an objective, and it doesn't have to be controlling it, it just needs to be within 3, your whole unit gets feel no pain. So in most missions, unless it's a mission with no objectives whatsoever, which don't exist in ITC because even the kill point missions have objectives, you're pretty much going to have feel no pain. So Azrael, if you want to take the feel no pain Warlord trait, effectively becomes a dude that gives you a whole unit a 4-up invul and your whole unit feel no pain straight up. Like, just, that's it. So that's already absolutely bonkers. And then you've got to add in the fact that he's actually not bad as far as an IC goes. He's a 4 wound 2-up save. He's, he doesn't have Eternal Warrior, but he does have other bonuses like +1 to your reserves roll. He lets all the Dark Angels have leadership. His leadership, which is surprisingly good because it gives the Thud Guns leadership 10, and the Scouts leadership 10. So that's something that a lot of people wouldn't consider, but that's actually really, really, really important. So what else? Of course, then I've got so that's the Dark Angels detachment, all right? So that's my first detachment. Then I've got the Wolfkin formation. You can see there, 64 wolves. That was a number I kind of came up with. I felt like I needed at least 60 to deal with Riptide Wing Alpha Strike if they got first turn. I felt like a Riptide Wing could kill up to 35 wolves, 35 to 40 potentially. So I needed a list that could still win if I lost 35 wolves on turn 1, which is, think about it, that's 35 4-up invulns potentially with or almost certainly with Feel No Pain as well. So I was assuming a potential worst case scenario of losing about 35 wolves to Riptide Wing first turn, and felt like I needed a number of about 60 to have the integrity, the unit integrity, to be able to buff up and then counter them and be able to survive through their following turns once they'd already used Hailstorm. So that was a number I came up with, 64. Retrospectively, as we'll talk about later, maybe you don't need quite that many. And then the third attachment is a Librarius Conclave. So, Librarius Conclave, in my opinion, writes itself in that it almost has to be a Tiggy Conclave. People talk about alternatives, different types of for this particular event, a White Scars Librarian Conclave would have actually given me hit and run because this event did not use the ratified FAQs, but I already had access to Samael. So for me, even in the scenario where I can use hit and run from White Scars, Tigarius is just so good that you can't not have Tigarius. A lot of people in my circle of list writers and friends were suggesting the Space Wolves Weird Storm Brotherhood, basically because of that extra shooting it has, as well as the Helm of Durfast to give the shooting ignores cover and stuff, the psychic shooting and rerolls. To me, that's not it pales in comparison to Tigarius. Tigarius just is so good. The fact that he rerolls his spells to generate his spells is what makes him phenomenal. You get effectively 6 rolls. So he's like having, obviously not a level 6, because a level 6 just automatically can know a tree, right? If there was a level 6. But what he does is he just lets you get, like a level 2 librarian only gets 2 rolls on a tree. It gets its first roll, it generates a spell, and if you miss the spell you want, you get then a 1 in 5 chance at the spell you want. Tigarius is even better than that because he also has the ability to roll a 3rd spell. So if you've missed the first and the second roll, right? It's then a 1 in 4 to get the spell you want because you've already got 2 spells. So he gets a re-rollable 1 in 4 in the worst case scenario, assuming you've already missed it on your previous 4 rolls. It's almost, Tigarius is just phenomenally good at generating spells is the point. And I would not replace him. I would not take a conclave that was not a Tigarius conclave. And obviously then, as you can see, I've got 3 more level 2s. They're all on bikes. I had one with a Force Axe and Melter Bombs. I had another one with a Force Axe on bike, and the third one had a Force Maul on bike. And the reason why he had the Maul was for the extra strength to be able to deal with vehicles with the help of Hammerhand or Might of Heroes, which is a good spell in the Librarius discipline, or Hammerhand potentially as well. So all those spells can help that Force Maul be a real vehicle killer. So that was my list, 1847. So it's worth noting that I really wanted that 4th Libby in the Conclave. Some people stop at 3. The 4th is very important, firstly, to make sure it's to increase your chance of having the 3 within 12 to channel. And also what it does is it means that if you lose a Libby, if you do lose one to whatever reason, barrage or a worst case scenario situation, perils or whatever it might be, you can at least still have the 3 Libbies to generate on the 2-up. And that's what makes the Libby Conclave, in my opinion, in addition to Tigarius, so much better than the Wolf Weird Storm. Being able to harness on 2s is just so strong. Even against other Psychic armies, kind of saying, all right, invisibility on 9 dice. You get it off 7 or 8 times. They're not going to stop that. And even if they do stop that, like if you're versing a worst case scenario, you're versing like a Magnus list or a Cabal list with with like 25 dice, and they throw 25 dice, which let's just say they throw 25 dice at your 7 cast invisibility and dispel it. Like, let's assume that best case scenario they dispel it. You now have free reign generating on 2s for the Psykers within the remaining 2 spells from Tigarius, and then if you have a level 2 that's not channeling, you get an additional 2 spells. So you'll be able to push out effectively 4 spells that can't be stopped, which can then that might sound like a really bad silver lining, like oh shit, you didn't get invisibility but you get 4 spells, but you have to remember that this will then allow you to cast things like witchfires and maledictions that you normally would never get through. So if they do that and blow their load to dispel you, you just then kind of say, okay, then eat a malediction that you never expected to come, like the -2 in Vol 1 from Librarius. So yeah, I just think that the Libby Conclave is definitely the best, kind of librarian conclave style formation you can get. So that's the list. Also, I didn't mention before, but Azrael, in his list of many, many valuable things, also has a Perfidious Relic of the Unforgiven, which is his little dude, counts as a Perfidious Relic, which gives him Adamantium Will. So the unit also had an Adamantium Will, which makes Azrael really important, because there were situations where people, like, when they didn't think my unit had Ad Will, and then when they realized it did, it just, you could just see the like hope drain from certain players' eyes when they realized, oh crap, that SP's spelling on 4s. And that's so relevant. The fact that people kind of underrate Ad Will, and Ad Will isn't that great on, a unit of Sisters of Battle, or 5-man unit of Sisters of Battle, whatever, unit has Ad Will. It's not that important, but when it's on a Death Star, it's like your whole army, all these little buffs are very, very important. So I realize this video has been pretty long at this point. Just before I move to the next video, you know what? Actually, we'll cut that there, and we'll come back with part 2, where I discuss, why I didn't take the alternatives and how the list performed. So see you guys for part 2 in a second.